Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another exciting session of Montreal by Night. Our scene will start in the Scorpions' communal haven with, of course, yours truly, Wilson Smith, doing what he does best, reading. We'll be sitting on likely one of the various pieces of furniture they have scattered around the haven, feet up, book in hand, semi-oblivious to the rest of the world around him, and that's where we'll start our scene.
For his part, after Arthur just returned from his little stroll out with Maurice and their favorite Dimishi, who is not Labusa. And when he opened the door and sees Wilson hidden behind his mountains of books, thinks to himself, he doesn't seem to see much light, so I'm going to do something about it. And he just crawls behind Wilson and puts a hand on his shoulder, even if he's sure he doesn't really surprise Wilson, because Arthur has this, let's say, creepy feeling all around him, and people tend to know that he's around.
Oh, hey, sorry.
First thing you noticed is that Arthur has a different face.
Should I ask?
Vicissitude.
Why?
We thought we were going to have a look into Magadon Corporation complex.
Ah, and if you don't look like you, they can't tell who you are.
Right.
Makes sense.
He touched his face. Still hurts. Well, okay, I know you and I love books and that we love to frolic in books, but I think you need to get out. You need to unwind.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And Wilson looks around at the various books, piled on the coffee table and other available surfaces. So, what'd you have in mind?
Well, we needed to see Father Burns to discuss about the war party that I got permission to launch, so that we can raid on this fucker and destroy him once and for all, before he blows up all Canada.
That might be a good idea, yeah. So we're gonna go talk with Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Alright.
Since, out of character, since we don't know really where his heaven is, Arthur will contact him by phone to say that he and Wilson would like a meeting to discuss.
If you were to dial Jacob's number, the phone will ring for a minute before you hear a voice on the other line. Hello. May I ask who's speaking?
Father Burns?
Oh, Father Duchene. It's been a long time. How's it going?
Good. I've been on vacations on Marieville, and I believe that we should discuss about what's happening there. Would you like to discuss about this somewhere that would make you comfortable?
I am currently tied down at my haven, but you and yours are more than welcome. If you don't mind a little bit of a mess and me tending to business, we can talk freely there, though.
Arthur looks around the books. No, I don't. I don't think whatever you have into your heaven will be that much disturbing for us. I will be there shortly with one of my packmates. One of the last ones. Out of character, of course. And I will see you shortly.
Very well. Come down by Pier 7 at Point St. Charles. Look for the hammer.
Very well. And he hangs up the phone. Well, looks like we are searching for a hammer.
Meaning?
I don't know. He gave me an address and he says, look for the hammer. I guess we'll see if he has some commie's blood in him, or if it's just something else.
Alright then.
Let's go.
And Wilson's going to let Arthur lead the way.
And after a while, they will get into, well, at the address that Father Burns gave them, but what is said hammer?
Well, once you arrive to the pier, you'll notice several different boats, and as you walk along its promenade, you will see a yacht with the letters emblazoned, SS Hammer.
Well,
That makes sense.
thankfully we don't have problem with water. That would have been awkward.
You'll eventually see Jacob standing at the deck. He is waiting for you. A much more rotund man in a butler's outfit and a captain's hat will let down the plank for you gentlemen to embark.
Well, I guess we have the captain's permission.
Well, let's come aboard then.
Let's go, Mille Sabor. And he goes into the boat.
Wilson follows along behind.
Jacob will greet you at the top of the staircase. Gentlemen, brothers, welcome to my humble abode. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. That is indeed a very interesting home that you have.
Thank you. I've put a lot of time, money, and effort into it. If I don't like my neighbors, I can always sail away.
There's something to be said for that.
Oh, Lester, raise the plank. We're going to cast off. We're going to take a little trip around the bay. This way we can talk freely, loudly if necessary.
Yes. I guess the only thing that we will fear is that the hunters still have submarines.
You'll see Jacob smile and perk up. Submarines? Really? I'd love to add that to my fleet.
Well, I guess that we will have to find actual hunter pirates then. Before that.
Are you gentlemen hungry? Have you been fed?
I'm fine for now, but thank you for offering.
I'm sorry, Father Burns. My particular habits make me a very picky host.
It's fine. And just for formality's sake, and although it's not necessary, I am no longer under the title of Father Burns. Pretempuously, I am Lord Burns. Lord Zarek has fallen to the beast. He is still alive, although For the moment, he is indisposed. I will
You-
be taking command of the Apex.
You found it. You found him underwater.
Yes, thanks to your Ductus efforts and that of Lady Nice, I was able to retrieve him.
So I guess now you wear both hats temporarily.
Temporarily, I am at the moment seeking out a new Cainite to perhaps take the title of father, if and only if Lord Zar cannot be rehabilitated from his current state.
That is an interesting perspective. I know some of our brothers who would prefer to keep both titles.
Too much power, even at, and I suppose this is ironically, the apex of the pyramid, its pinnacle, I often see leading to corruption. The Sabbat should operate more like a hydra. If one head gets cut off, the rest of the body won't die.
That holds some truth. Unfortunately, it seems that, contrary to what it used to be before, well, we seems to have more elders taking power for themselves these nights,
Hmm.
and we tend to prefer to keep it.
Well, we do know what happened the last time elders did that, don't we?
Yeah, even if this time it's a little bit different, because this time we have rules that say that technically we cannot kill over Sabbat. Of course, there is always monumency.
Wilson kind of looks at both of them a little bit quizzically because he has quite obvious that he's not familiar with a lot of the terminology or the history of the Sabbat. You guys are gonna have to fill me in on this at some point.
Well,
I can just imagine the two of them like, well, you want to be.
no, please, Father Duchene, I do not mean to tutor your own packmate unless I would have your leave to. Let's hear.
Well, I think we are sailing into the sea. We are in a free zone. It's always interesting to have an exchange about, well, how we perceive our dear sect and our rights. But to answer your first question, Wilson, the monumency is one of the rights of our sect. It is, well, some might describe. Well, you had probably read it in your book, but do you remember this church tradition who said that if you hide a feud with someone, you could always ask for the judgment of God to be your witness, and that the winner of, say, combat shall be in fact recognized in the eyes of God as the one.
So trial by combat. Got it.
Yes, it's in the most simple way. It is a trial by combat, even if it can varies in time of, well, weapons, location, or even term of victory. But even if final death is most of these nights the outcome.
Interesting.
It is a way to be, well, some might say, civilized, and you can actually You hear that he kind of find it very ironic.
Well, certainly something to keep in mind.
Mm. Yes. It's, well, I think Father Burns, well, Lord Burns, as for now, will agree with me that it is sometimes used for, well, pesky reasons, as a way out of, well, personal problems.
Oh, of course, of course. Just like the United States with its articles of impeachment, its filibusters, and all of that, the rules and the checks of balances can always be turned to one's personal gain. It only serves us best if the person and their own personal gain is that it behooves the rest of the Sabbat. Although, of course, one may have to look at it through a scanner darkly. If such a person was to ever rise so fast, so far, gobbling up all those weaker than him, all for their own personal, privatized desires, they would be noticed fast, and more sooner isolated under the weight of the demand that is the title that they assume. You must keep in mind, the titles that we Sabbat have, they are more honorary than they are authoritative. Sometimes elders need to be reminded of that. And be facts. Each of us must at times remind them that. It's funny, I had this conversation not too long ago, and I think it's a good perspective to keep in mind. Much like the titles we used, they are reflections of the Catholic Church. And when we go to war, we term them in ways of knights gone past. Crusades, Templars, all those sort of things. But keep in mind, just like my title, Lord Burns, well, the Crusaders of old, the ones who left to Jerusalem to fight the good fight, they were all landed knights, kings, sell swords, men of title, men of land. They were the ones, they were the commanders of rank. They were the ones of station. It was the bishops, the archbishops, the ones in the papacy. They simply guided those who would fight. They would not command.
Yeah, there is some truth in that titles are mostly symbolics. However, some of us thinks maybe a little too high of their own position and how they see things. You haven't seen it, Wilson, but I saw some very interesting perspective from others priests, particularly those of who are adept of a more orthodox approach of our sect. We are a sect who has strong beliefs, and those beliefs makes us stronger. Some might say that it is indeed just like the French Revolution, that our truth strength is that the others stopped to believe, that they chose to hide themselves in the darkness of their own ignorance, choosing to forget that the end is coming, and that it is better to ignore it, and maybe it will go away, but we know the truth that the end is coming, and that the judgment shall be, well, very swift for those who follow the wrong path. However, there are those who think that maybe our sect is not, let's say, too much into beliefs, that it should be reinforced. Those are very interesting to speak to, because they think, for example, that the priest should overthrow Ductus, but the Ductus is in fact nothing more than a war leader, but that to lead someone must have faith, and that faith is the fire that drives us. I think it's always an interesting point of view that sometimes they tend to forget that, well, faith fuel your fire, but sometimes you can be burned by your own faith. But you forget that, well, the rules that you apply to yourself sometimes don't apply to others and reality.
I would sum it up as it being a left-right brain issue. Sometimes one must be pragmatic. At other times one must act from a position of faith in such an endeavor. It always works best when a Ductus and a priest can work together in unison within the same pack. Of course, if the Ductus were to find that the priest is somewhat a hindrance towards pack survival, he must do what is necessary for the pack survival. And at the same time, if a priest finds that the same Ductus is a spoil, a stain onto a pack's morale, it must be done away with.
Well, that's... And Arthur laughs a little bit. Are you sure that you're not following the path of your heart? Because
I can... No, please go on.
Because it does rings very true to my personal beliefs that survival and unity with your packmates should be, well, absolute, but that if one is a danger for the whole, then to ensure the survival of said pack or institution, then it should be removed from the picture.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that. Lord Zarek himself was a follower of the Path of Harmony. I believe that is somewhat a distinction from the Path of Feral Heart. We had many of these conversations, and I suppose, as a good example, what has occurred now with my own pack. Well, I made an oath. I swore to serve this pack as its priest. Lord Zarek unfortunately has lost his way. However, I did not right away kill him, nor consume his heart's blood, because out of the same oath that I swore to protect my pack and to serve my pack, just because my brother and former Lord Zarek may have fallen, I will not give up on him. Being on the path of honorable accord is not an easy path to follow, but I do believe it is a necessary one. One in which an individual of the Sabbat can suspend their own self momentarily and look at the great good for the second of the whole.
Certainly an very interesting way of looking at things.
And I suppose in the endeavor, if it could be so that Lord Zarek is rehabilitated, how much better a discovery that for all other brothers and sisters in the future, should they fall prey to the beast, they do not have to be wasted and thrown away. I do believe in redemption and second chances. None of us are perfect, and we should strive to serve each other so that we may remain free.
There is indeed some truth. We should always try to convince others who have failed in a way, being either through omissions or falling to the beast. We should always try to, well, get them back together so that they can prove themselves worthy of our sect and our beliefs. However, sometimes, unfortunately, well, some peoples are definitely lost, or, well, some are not worthy of Cain's blessing.
No, some truly are not. And I believe Cain will deliver them to the fate that is necessary. At times, us being his agents.
And, well, I wouldn't say, speaking of this particular individual being unworthy of Cain's blessing because he has not been blessed, but I would say that the particular individual that I want to speak about has indeed incurred the wrath of Cain on him.
I mean, if you look, something how you're looking at it, it's sort of more like he's stolen it, I guess.
Do you remember Father Burns of the Flaming Sword?
Yes, I do.
Well, the Archbishop asked us to track a certain individual, an individual who was in possession of having the grimoire of Father Pasenti. His name is James Fullilove, an individual you cannot trust with such a name. Yes, because I always need to put this phrase somewhere whenever I mention the name. It's a tradition.
Sounds like a pimp.
Have you heard of them while we were investigating on the Flaming Sword?
Yes. Your Ductus, Lady Anatoly, had... we've had some correspondences.
Then, I will ask, are you aware of his last whereabouts? And he kind of smiled predatorily.
I heard that your trip to Marieville is where you've encountered him, as his exact last whereabouts. That is unknown to me.
Well, we learned a lot of things, haven't we, Wilson?
You could say that.
First of all, before Wilson... no, actually, Wilson, please entertain our host here with your hunt and maybe what we saw at the church. And then we will reveal the surprise.
Well, first we, of course, travel to Marieville looking for Mr. Fullilove. And Wilson sort of... You can see him sort of wince in anger when he mentions the name. And as it turns out, Fullilove was indeed in Marieville, and he'd set, so I would say, traps for people of our particular persuasion, shall we say. I don't know how up on pop culture you are. Are you familiar with the Silent Hill franchise?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so these traps sort of turn the world sideways, at least for those caught in them. Imagine what the village looked like with, ruined and rusted out and bloodstained. That's how the world went when you were caught in one of these traps. Now, thankfully...
Had appraised me a little bit of that description, but please do go on in depth.
Well, first time I encountered it, fortunately I happened to be caught in one of these, unknowingly caught in one of these traps. I had gone to feed, and of course, following this, the world, as I described at the time, went sideways. The best way to... just everything suddenly going wrong. I mean, thankfully at the time the effect wasn't, I guess, damaging. It wasn't directly harmful, but it was certainly disconcerting. When it became harmful later, it was later on when we decided to investigate where odd goings on. And we had spoken to some of the various crows that were nesting in Marieville, and we discovered that there were certain what they called diseased nests, which we took to mean places where there was this strange. Well, later we found out, when we discovered later, was the traps, but strange influence. And when we investigated the church, the same thing happened again, except this time there were other beings there. Our tour can attest to this. They weren't happy to see us.
What kind of beings were they like?
Well, human-ish.
Kind of like plague doctors, I would say,
Like-
if I had to describe their physiques.
Like back in Europe during the Black Plague.
Yes. Kind of like that.
Well, they attempted to poke us full of holes. Thankfully, we avoided that fate, as you can see. And as quickly as it had appeared, the not quite a vision or hallucination, because it was very, very real, just up and vanished. Now, as we discovered later, when we had our encounter with Mr. Fullilove, when we finally had a face-to-face with him.
I think you forgot just one detail.
Oh, right, that one.
Tell him what happens when you kill those witch doctor.
Oh, yes, we dispatched them. Of course, they don't really leave behind corpses. They simply rot to nothing.
Some kind of chimeras, perhaps? Revenant.
No, I don't. Well, I guess the power of a ravenous would be an actual interesting depiction of that. But basically, yes, they were, when we killed them with my bare hands, they were, puffing, like when you take a balloon and you just pop it out. They were just exploding and leaving only ashes. It was very strange.
Of course, as I said, when we finally encountered Mr. Fullilove, Artur, do you want to reveal what we found?
Yes. We asked, what you may not know, my dear friend, is that I have a particular set of skills that gives me auricular visions. I tend to see the unseen and sometimes possible futures.
Oh,
And a lot of times when I tried to make my visions, I was, hijacked, I would say, like a computer. I was having an interference with Fullilove, and he always seemed to see me as I saw him, which was really unusual. Then, when I encountered him, he started to talk about, the fact that we were linked by, I think he said, the great pattern or something like that, which was a little bit disturbing for a hunter. But this is where it gets interesting. He's not a hunter. He is not, in fact. He just, apparently his association with a hunter was merely coincidental. It was more about the fact that he wanted the grimoire. He was a petty thief. The only problem is that this petty thief is a mage.
I've heard this term before. Could you elaborate some more for me, please?
Magi are, I guess the best term would be Tremere's worse. They are worse than the Tremere. They have supernatural powers that are most of the time Tremeres are working with the power of the blood. From what I understand, they have some kind of magical essence. I do not pry into the business of Tremere, but from what I understand of they are they can change reality to their will. They can interact with it. I don't know how. I don't know how it is possible, but yeah, apparently they can pretty much do a lot of things that even the Tremere would only dreamed of.
And I suppose that this mage, not being like the Tremere, being somewhat mortal, his powers not being dependent on blood, has an ability to tap into some otherworldly source of power.
Yes, that's what I believe, actually. The well, the only problem, outside of the fact that he's a mage, the only problem is that, well, he has helped. He is the one. You know the powers that had those hunters, those powers that were so much similar to ours.
Yeah.
He is the one who gave it to them. He is the one who made the trinkets, who made it possible. He is the one who basically maybe tortured some of our brothers to get their powers into said trinkets. And not only that, he went to Marieville to propose some devious project to the and you say he see him quote in the earth to the Archbishop of Marieville, who was the Ductus of the kings and queens. If my memory serves correct, a La Sombra, a very old La Sombra who was hailing from France, Monsieur Bottecue, and he basically proposed to give him a limited source of powers. The only problem, and well, I think you will see why this would have been a problem, is that he tends to do his business by summoning spirits from the netherworld, from the beyond. Well,
If I may, just to clarify one particular part, you're saying that this Archbishop, what was their name again?
Monsieur Bottecue.
This Monsieur, he bargained with the mage.
No, he did not. In fact, he was very angry, as he should be. And he said, well, basically to fuck off. Probably in French. Saint Mage didn't take it very well, and he took care of him. I don't know if he met his final death. The sisters, his child, didn't confirm it, but, well, either he took his own life or he took it with him, because during one of my visions, I saw a tank, let's say a big aquarium, because I, unfortunately, even if I'm a little bit old, some of the English terms I'm quite closest to me. But basically, in this big fish tank, call him that, there was a vampire in it, a person that I felt kinship. I'm not sure, because it's from my visions. I'm not sure if he was from my pack, because Korra hasn't hailed from quite a time, or if it is in fact Monsieur Bottecue and that the mage is experimenting on him.
I had heard through Her Excellency the Archbishop that, well, maybe she was parroting the same presumptions that this Monsieur Boudica was being experimented on. I had an idea, perhaps, if direct conflict could be avoided, or at least delayed in our favor, perhaps we could propose a trade.
Well, we already got something from it. He gave us the grimoire from the hunter. The only problem is that, well, and I tend to agree with that, Her Excellency agrees that he has, even if such were not his intention, he has not once, but twice mingled with our affairs by attacking and draining the blood, the very essence of our own life, from us, thus making him an enemy of the Sabbat. And she gave me, well, express, you could say order, but I would prefer to think that it was a friendly reminder that we should, in fact, wage a war party on him to stop him from doing whatever he's doing. Because I don't know very much about magic, and neither does Wilson, but his description of his project makes it seem like it could either work or it could blow it out of proportions.
Like I said, first time we found out about this, it sounds like it's falling into that whole things man was not meant to know thing. That and it's probably going to blow up in his face and probably take out, a good chunk of the landscape with it.
Well, I would say with Cain's blessing. However, maybe I'm taking it just a little too personally, but this mage does need to understand that we're not a kind to be fucked with. However, I don't really know yet what kind of powers. I don't have the first-hand experience you gentlemen do. However, here's just a proposition I have. There's this fellow in this city named Knox. I do have a personal grudge with him, but he has bad written all over him.
Ah, you mean the one from the Magadon Corporation?
Yes, yes indeed. If this mage is looking for a Cainite to experiment on, I suggest we offer him Knox. Knox, in my opinion, seems to, like this mage, tap into things that weren't meant to be trifled with. Things that are best left kept a secret. I think it would do us very well, without losing any brothers or sisters, to hand this Knox over forcibly and take him to this mage. Maybe this mage would accept our deal or not. If he does, we get the Archbishop back. And, well, we can do with him as is necessary. And if this mage takes Anthony Knox, we can always phone in a little anonymous tip as to where the face of their corporation has been. And perhaps Magadon could throw their resources at dealing with this mage. 2 1
From what I recall, though, Fullilove said he wasn't going to be using us anymore.
Yes, well, if you remember correctly, he said not now.
Well, I think that was more implied. The yet was implied, but...
Yes, but the thing is that Monsieur Boudica being still prisoner doesn't count into the equation. He was captured before he made the deal with us, so basically he is out of the deal technically. However, I would like to point out something that the title Archbishop is, well, not real. He says himself that he is Archbishop of his small town, but he is not a real Archbishop. It's just someone with maybe too high opinion of himself. However, I have to agree that, well, as much as I would love to, well, put the flaming sword of Cain into his head and tear his body apart, seeing as Magadon has werewolves, apparently, under its service, I guess that it would be, well, wiser to, in fact, ensure that Magadon actually deals with the mage.
Yes, those lupines. Thank God they are somewhat civil in discourse.
Yeah, even if I wouldn't expect too much of them. I made a little tour with Maurice and his dear Ductus. We found some very well interesting things about Magadon Corporation. For now, I still need to gain more information. Maurice had the idea that we should maybe wage war against their assets. This is why I sent students to actually search for the warehouse where they would, well, keep their supplies. If we hurt them that way, that would actually slow them a little bit and maybe make them focus in order to ensure kidnapping of said dogs. However, from what we saw of the building, there is. Do you see how a fortress is built, brother?
Mm-hmm.
Well, pretty much it is just like that. There are no emergency exits. Only one way to enter, only one way to go out.
That's got to be a fire hazard.
No. Believe me, I don't know if they have anything against fire, but there are no exits, no emergency exits. There exists none. It's one winter go.
Father Duchene, have pushed myself to what limits I can that the blood allows me, as far as my mastery over the shadows. If you need someone to infiltrate that building, I'll get in there. Either me or Sister Jones. She's coming along quite nicely as an infiltrator.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I guess I can assist you since I tend to not being seen either. But yes, we should actually get inside. And maybe there has been mention of a hacker by Maurice. Maybe we could get information about from their computers.
Personally, if I may add my own little personal touch, I've been thinking that publicly is a good way to hurt their assets. They have competitors, investors. It wouldn't do well if one of their numbers, their CEOs, were to, I don't know, be accused of some heinous act in the court of public opinion, but long before it goes to trial.
And you see Arthur is laughing his ass off. Oh, well, that's the second time in the night, I guess. Great minds think alike. We thought with Maurice that maybe we should throw some pictures with, and he goes into a little notebook. Let me see. So we thought about cocaine, of course, obviously, because people in this position always use drugs. Lots of alcohol, and maybe some underage hookers, and personal touch from Maurice and, well, from the Gangrel clan, maybe a dog, just to make things extra crusty.
You know, I can always convince our potential victim that under a lie detector test they will pass. I have a ghoul that is tracking Mr. Knox, trying to find out a timetable where he goes at night or during the day. If he is indeed one of our kind. That's something I'm still trying to figure out, but nonetheless, if he goes to a restaurant, if he goes to a club, if we can pinpoint a time and a place, we can close any loophole he may conceive of an alibi. We pick up an unwitting victim, I reprogram their memories, and there they'll go to the police department, boo-hoo and crying, describing their assailant. What a monster.
True. Even if I think that pictures leaking over the internet would be a bonus to this little tale. I think that maybe I will help your ghoul by tasking one of my crows to follow Mr. Knox, because, well, even if your ghoul is very good at her work, there can always be sometimes where a bird is, well, less. You don't tend to look that much about birds than people. I think that having the two of them, at least two ghouls working on that, would ensure that nothing goes unchecked.
Of course, the more the merrier. We need eyes and ears as much as we can get.
Indeed. But I really think that it would be weird for a vampire to actually employ lupines.
Or the other way around, from what you've told me.
Yeah. I tend to think that, from my experience, lupines tend to, well, get not very friendly with our kind.
I've had some discussions with them. One of them asked me if I worship the Dark Father. I had the unsettling feeling that he wasn't referring to our Dark Father. Perhaps Mr. Knox's employment of them is more a matter of them having mutual interests somewhere else.
That would be interesting, because, well, for this, I thought that lupines were more into nature divination. That would be weird for them to mention the Dark Father.
Oh, well, this one particular lupine, the Red Queen as she called herself, she's into divination, of course, but more the augury type. You know, the pulling of livers and kidneys and all of that nonsense.
Well, that's charming.
Yeah, she is a charming lady.
Yeah, even if I would prefer not to being hijacked by her pornographic intercourse with her brother.
But, well, as to the matter that you mentioned before, Father Duchene, this war party upon this mage, the Apex will gladly join. If you need us there at a moment's notice, strike hard and fast, that's fine. I simply am just giving my sound advice as to perhaps how we can take out a target without necessarily getting our hands dirty.
Well, I tend to like to feel the blood on my enemies under my hand and my teeth. However, hmm, knowing my personal experience with the Tremere anti-tribu, I only had an experience once. It was not very pleasant. I don't really want to know that much intimately what a mage is capable of. So if we can set lupines and a full corporation against him while getting our brother back, I guess it will be satisfactory, even if, well, I don't know what, I don't know what the Archbishop will say about this, but I guess that as long as the result is there and that the menace is being put out.
Before I forget, there is a something I need to have delivered to your Ductus. Would you mind accompanying me down to the deck? Well, sorry, not the deck, to the lower cabins.
Certainly.
And Jacob will take the both of you, leading you through the yacht. It's a nice looking yacht. You'll see a couple of other ghouls there. You'll see a very young, beautiful looking woman. Jacob will just point out, that's my ghoul, Chloe. She's quite the work to be. And when we get to the bottom deck, you might smell a very strong scent of bleach and ammonia, as if this place has been scrubbed as sanitary as possible. Jacob opens the door, though. You're also going to be hit with a quick waft of what to Squatchka would probably smell like. Oh, don't mind them. They were pets of Lord Zarek. I'm tending to them as best as I can. Jacob will reach through one of the bars. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Paw.
Well, that's certainly an interesting sight.
Yes, they're very timid and mild. Didn't expect that from them. Usually when Lord Zarek had them on a leash, well, they were, I suppose, hungry and ravening. Anyhow, they aren't the package. Don't worry. And we'll also pass by, when we pass by the cage, you'll see a young-looking gentleman who is dressed in perhaps the gayest sailor outfit possible. My booty shorts, the really stupid hat, and the jacket with the flap on the back. This is my new ghoul here. His name is Jack. He was once called Pig, although I had to give him a name since now he actually does something. But anyhow. Jack, I need you to retrieve that package for me. Please go pick it out of the chests. And timidly he'll put his mop away and just nod. And he'll kind of like look at the both of you, and you probably see like the saddest set of eyes possible before he just turns and scurries off. By the way, Brother Wilson, you've been rather quiet tonight. I was wondering, how did you find the last time we had met, when we had taken the hunters at the warehouse? What was your experience when you walked away from that?
Oh, I actually had a similar discussion with Labusa after that one. I just didn't. It seems to be part of me at the time. Part of me knew I probably should have felt bad about, well, having to kill a bunch of people, but I didn't.
They were enemies of the sect. They deserve to die.
Oh, it's more that they're direct enemies of, well, us as individuals.
Well, I understand your distinction, but if Mexico City was to fall, if all the other holds of the Sabbat were to fall, that wouldn't mean there would be no Sabbat. The Sabbat lives in every packmate, every Ductus, every priest. So,
I suppose that's one way of looking at it.
the Sabbat needs its protectors, a force that will unblinkingly, unwaveringly serve, and will stop at nothing to destroy the enemies that would harm them, even if them are just your brothers and sisters. I'm sure you're a man capable of understanding that, yes?
You could say that.
Are you much of a killer, Wilson?
Not really had the opportunity, other than well, at the warehouse and the weird dream world thing. So I don't think that really counts. I'd say at the moment, I'd rather avoid it if I can. But there are a few people who I guess would deserve it. Fullilove, for example, we were talking about him.
Well, if you had your own way of taking out Fullilove, how would you do it?
Quick and clean, bullet between the eyes. I don't care how powerful his magic is. He's not going to be casting any spells with a hole in his head.
Up close or from a distance?
Whichever is more advantageous.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Whichever would end up being more advantageous.
It's a good way to look at things. You are good with guns, aren't you? I remember that from my last.
You could say that.
Have you met Sister Jones yet?
No, I don't believe I have. Wait, no. You mean Tamara?
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know, Sister Jones has such a ring to it. But anyway. She is someone I'm trying to help. With as much help as I can give to any brother and sister. I've tried to help formally train her in the art of combat. Currently, I am helping her specialize with knives. Perhaps you could lend her a hand with guns. In return, I'd gladly give you a hand in any kind of formal training I could provide.
Sounds like a fair enough trade.
Very well. And Jack returns, and he has a very large package, a very large-looking box, and it's kind of gift wrapped. It even has a nice pink bow on it. Jacob will take it and just nod to Jack, tell him to go on, go back to your chores. He'll turn to Father Duchene. This is the last C-17 rifle I could hold on to. Cleaning up the mess of the hunters, I had to sacrifice the entire cachet. Do give it to your Ductus. Tell her it's a gift, and many thanks for her service in helping me retrieve Lord Zarek.
Well, thank you for this gift. I'm sure she will appreciate it. She has a thing for guns. I don't particularly. Well, so does Wilson. I don't really. I'm a more up-close person.
Well, Lubus is pretty partial to her AK.
No. You can always. Well, since she is always so fond of her AK, maybe she will give this assault rifle to you.
Who knows?
You
Yes,
will keep the books.
When we had a correspondence while you and the Scorpions were in Marieville, she asked me if I had any left. As I told her, it was the only one. I wish I could have brought the guns to her sooner, possibly when you guys needed it. But if you do return to Marieville, well, Here you go.
Unfortunately, it wouldn't really have been of any use, unfortunately, as, well, we discovered that he has a very keen perception. I was, well, Wilson was hiding in the bushes, and Lebusa was, well, on the roof of the hotel, but he was still able to see her, even if she was hiding in the shadows with her rifle. So, yes, this mage wouldn't have make a difference with a rifle, but we thank you for your gifts, as it will be used wisely into the future against the enemies of our sect.
Say, Father, you mentioned something about reception. Like, I'm trying to understand here. This mage, did he have this ability to pick up on people's thoughts? Did he feel presences across great distances?
I think if I had to distinct two sets of powers, I would say, firstly, that he apparently has a very keen perception, that he doesn't seem to have a problem perceiving people either hiding or at long distance, because I believe that well, the hotel was approximately at 200 feet from there, approximately, or very, very long distance. He wouldn't, well, Lebusa is no amateur, so he wouldn't have been able to, see the reflection of the gun or something like that. So I would say that his magic gives him perception that goes far beyond what we would expect. And he seems to have a very close interest in dreams, which seems to be his kink. Because from what we gathered of information with Wilson, he seems to have shown close interest into a dream and how apparently, and this is what he said, he didn't really curse the town for this whole Silent Hill thing. Apparently this would be more of a dream projection, an interference of the dream. Well, I would use his word. He said dreamscape or something akin. That this dreamscape was blending with reality. So I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't know how to describe it, but I would say something akin to maybe auspex and chemistry.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just having an epiphany, or I'm putting something together here, but, well, are you familiar with the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that episode with the little kid that was a monster, and how everybody had to be careful about what they thought around him?
Not particularly.
Oh.
Don't think I saw that one.
Right. I don't.
Well, essentially, this little kid, he had the ability, just like this mage, he could hear people's thoughts, and at a moment's notice, he could change them. He could make them disappear. Usually, he had this way of banishing them into a cornfield. It happened instantaneously, until one of the adults tried to rise up and finally take a stab at the kid. But the entire time he did, he tried to keep his thoughts pure, because the moment he let passion and the anger surface, the kid could pick up on it. I'm wondering, just maybe, if it's possible, if that is how this mage's foresight, ability of perception works, if perhaps sending a drone in would help not disturb this dreamscape, as you say.
Could be.
Could be. But, this bothers me so much, but I'm going to regret saying this, but we need house correctrix inside on this. Because let's face it, we are the only one who are going to understand what the hell he's doing. However, most of the time, those goddamn pricks are going to ask something in return. Like they're going to ask for my arm, your leg, and Wilson's hair, just for the fun of it.
Well, I suppose we're going to need maybe some forward scouts in Marieville. I'd like to know what the place is like during the day, if it's any quieter, if his powers are any more active, fluctuating.
Oh. I know someone who might be able to help with that.
Yeah, I guess we are going to have to send some human ghouls there for preemptive measures and investigation.
Yep.
Very well. Then, I guess that since it is something that is dear to your heart and, well, has picked up Eric, has picked up the interest of so many people in this city, I will withdraw the war party for now. And I would indeed like to see if we can get two birds with one stone. And I would feel much better knowing that we don't have werewolves on our asses.
Very true. If at the least, if we are able to take down Nox and Magadon before we make this trade, whatever we loot and plunder from Magadon, at least we could add it into our war chest before Marieville.
Yes, I agree with that.
Well, sounds like a plan.
Please go on.
Oh no, Jacob's just suggesting if we should make the trip back to shore. You know.
Yes, because as Arthur will point out, I can fly, but Wilson can't.
So, yeah,
Just out of character, did you brought Wilson alone when you were going into the cabin?
No, you were there the whole time.
Okay, so I'll just make a roll, and he will because the whole dialogue about a force to defend the Sabbat, the interest sounds a little bit suspicious. So I'll just make a roll, and Jason will say if actually it rings a bell or not. He will see. No, it will not ring any bells because it's a fail. Because Arthur would look at you very differently. But I guess that we can say that this was a very interesting scene and that we discussed about a lot and that we have a lot to do.
Indeed. So, unless anybody has anything else needs to bring up, I think we can call that a scene.
I think so.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this exciting edition of Montreal by Night and hope to see you next time.
Au revoir!